The dust of the Texas sun settled on Harmony Jackson's face as she pulled her stallion to an abrupt stop at the edge of Marfa, her chest heaving with a mixture of exhilaration and rage after outrunning the posse that had been hunting her father's prized horses across Presidio County. The year was 1887, and the West was still wild enough that a woman on horseback drew stares, especially one who rode like Harmony with the confidence of 10 men and the grace of a soaring eagle. Her father, William Jackson, had raised her on the back of a horse after her mother passed during childbirth, teaching her everything he knew about ranching, riding, and surviving in the harsh Texas landscape. By 18, she could outride any ranch hand they hired. By 21, her reputation had spread throughout the county. Harmony dismounted, patting the neck of her black stallion, Shadow. "Good boy," she whispered, leading him to the water trough outside the general store. Her dark brown hair was tied back in a practical braid, but wisps had escaped during her ride, framing her sun-kissed face. Her riding pants and fitted shirt were unconventional for a woman, but practicality trumped propriety in her world. "Miss Jackson," called Mr. Thompson, the store owner, from his porch. "Your father was looking for you not an hour ago." "Bandits tried to make off with our new Appaloosas," she replied, her green eyes flashing. "They won't be trying that again any time soon." The storekeeper chuckled. "I don't doubt it. You ride better than any man in this county, that's for certain." "Some folks still can't accept that," Harmony said, brushing dust from her sleeve. "Speaking of which," Thompson lowered his voice, "there's a new fellow in town, been asking about you." Harmony raised an eyebrow. "Asking what exactly?" "Your name, your ranch. Seemed mighty interested when I mentioned your riding skills." She shrugged, unconcerned. New men came through Marfa regularly, most passing through on their way to somewhere more promising. "I'd better get back to the ranch. Pa will be worried." As she mounted Shadow again, she noticed a tall figure leaning against the hitching post outside the saloon across the street. Even from this distance, she could feel his eyes on her. Something about his stance, confident but relaxed, suggested he wasn't just another drifter. Harmony turned Shadow toward the road that would lead her back to Jackson Ranch, 5 miles outside of town. She urged the horse into a gallop, leaving Marfa and its curious stranger behind in a cloud of dust. The Jackson Ranch spread across 800 acres of West Texas land, with mountains visible in the distance. The main house was modest but sturdy, built by her grandfather when he claimed the land 30 years earlier. The barn and stables were Harmony's domain, lovingly maintained and expanded by her own hands. William Jackson was in the corral when she returned, working with one of their newer horses. At 50, he was still strong, though his dark hair was now streaked with silver. His weathered face broke into a smile when he saw his daughter. "There you are. I was about to come looking for you. Caught up with those rustlers by Alameda Creek," she said, dismounting. "They won't be bothering us again." William's expression darkened. "You shouldn't take such risks, Harmony." "If something happened to you, nothing's going to happen to me, Pa," she interrupted, the familiar argument wearing thin. "I can take care of myself." "That's not the point," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You're 23 years old, daughter. Most women your age are married with children by now." Harmony untacked Shadow, avoiding her father's gaze. "And most men my age couldn't catch me if I gave them a half-day head start." William laughed despite himself. "That's true enough. Still, I worry about what will happen to the ranch when I'm gone." "That won't be for many years," she said firmly, leading Shadow into his stall. "And when it does happen, I'll run this place just as well as you do." "I know you could," William said softly, "but the law doesn't see it that way. A woman alone. The bank would find any excuse to take this land." Harmony knew he was right, and it frustrated her endlessly. Her capabilities mattered less than her sex in the eyes of the law. Still, she refused to marry simply for security. "Mr. Thompson said there was a stranger in town asking about me," she said, changing the subject. William's expression shifted. "Yes, I met him. Calls himself Yates Eastwood, says he's looking to settle in these parts. And he was asking about me specifically." Harmony frowned. "Your reputation precedes you, my dear." William smiled. "He heard about your riding in El Paso, apparently, seemed mighty impressed." Harmony rolled her eyes. "Probably another man looking to prove himself by challenging the woman who rides like a man. Actually, he's invited us to dinner at the hotel tomorrow evening." William looked almost sheepish. "I accepted." "Pa," Harmony protested, "you know I hate those social gatherings. It's just dinner, Harmony, and the man has interesting propositions about expanding our breeding program. He comes from good stock in Kentucky." Harmony sighed. Her father's passion for breeding the finest horses in Texas sometimes outweighed his common sense. "Fine, but I'm wearing my riding pants." "You most certainly are not," William said, the authority returning to his voice. "Your mother's dress will do just fine." Later that evening, Harmony sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the distant mountains in shades of orange and purple. The vastness of the Texas sky never failed to calm her spirit, even when restlessness threatened to overwhelm her. The sound of approaching hoofbeats made her sit up straight, hand instinctively moving toward the rifle that leaned against the porch railing. Visitors at this hour were uncommon. A lone rider appeared, silhouetted against the darkening sky. As he drew closer, Harmony could make out a strong profile, broad shoulders, and a well-bred chestnut horse that moved with impressive grace. The man pulled up 20 yards from the house, removing his hat. "Evening, madam. William Jackson about." Harmony stood, keeping her hand near the rifle. "Who's asking?" "Yates Eastwood." The man's voice carried easily across the distance. "I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Jackson in town earlier today." So this was the curious stranger. In the fading light, Harmony could see he was younger than she'd expected, perhaps in his late 20s. His features were strong and defined, his manner confident without arrogance. "Pa's in the house," she said, making no move to call for him. "Bit late for social calls, Mr. Eastwood," he smiled, and Harmony was irritated to find it an appealing smile. "I was riding the perimeter of the property I purchased yesterday and realized how close I was to your ranch. Thought I'd pay my respects." "You bought the old Miller place?" Harmony couldn't hide her surprise. That ranch had been abandoned for years after drought and debt drove the Millers back east. "I did." He dismounted, leading his horse closer. "May I approach Miss Jackson?" Harmony nodded reluctantly, impressed despite herself by the way he handled his mount with respect and expertise. As Yates came into the lantern light of the porch, Harmony got a better look at him. His eyes were a striking blue, contrasting with his sun-darkened skin. His clothes were quality but practical. This was no dandified Easterner playing at ranching. "Your father mentioned you're a remarkable horsewoman," he said, tying his horse to the post. "My father talks too much," Harmony replied, though without real annoyance. Yates chuckled. "He's proud of you, says you can outride any man in the county." "Is that why you're really here, Mr. Eastwood? To see if the stories are true?" He met her gaze directly. "Partly, I suppose. I've always appreciated skill and talent, regardless of who possesses it." The door opened behind Harmony and William stepped out. "Thought I heard voices." "Mr. Eastwood, this is a pleasant surprise." "I apologize for the late hour," Yates said, shaking William's hand. "I was surveying my new property." "No apology needed. Come in, come in. We were about to have coffee." Harmony followed them inside, studying Yates from behind. There was something different about him. He looked at her directly when speaking, without the condescension or awkwardness most men displayed when confronted with a woman who didn't conform to expectations. Their housekeeper, Mrs. Alvarez, served coffee in the modest sitting room. The conversation flowed easily, primarily about horses and ranching, with Yates asking intelligent questions about their breeding program. "I understand you trained that black stallion yourself, Miss Jackson," Yates said, turning to Harmony, who had remained mostly silent. "I did. Found him wild in the mountains 3 years ago. No one thought he could be tamed." Yates nodded appreciatively. "He's magnificent. I noticed his gait when you rode into town today. Perfect balance." "You were watching me." Harmony raised an eyebrow. "Hard not to. The way you handle a horse is extraordinary." There was genuine admiration in his voice, not the patronizing tone she was accustomed to hearing from men commenting on her riding. "Mr. Eastwood comes from a long line of horse breeders in Kentucky," William explained. "His family supplied cavalry horses during the war." "Which side?" Harmony asked bluntly. "Both, actually," Yates replied with a slight smile. "My father believed horses shouldn't suffer for men's quarrels. He sold to whoever could pay Union or Confederate." "Practical," Harmony commented. "Necessary," Yates corrected. "The war nearly ruined us. We had to rebuild afterward, which is partly why I've come west. New beginnings." The conversation continued for another hour before Yates stood to leave. "I should let you folks retire. Thank you for the hospitality." At the door, he turned to Harmony. "I look forward to seeing more of your riding skills, Miss Jackson. Perhaps we could ride together sometime." Before she could respond, he added, "I have a new Arabian that could use a challenging companion. Shadow might be just the horse to push him." The mention of her horse's capabilities rather than her own was a subtle but significant difference from the usual challenges men presented her with. It piqued her interest, despite her determination to remain aloof. "Perhaps," she said noncommittally. After Yates had ridden away, William turned to his daughter with a knowing smile. "He's different from the others, isn't he?" Harmony busied herself clearing coffee cups. "He's just another man fascinated by the novelty of a woman who can ride." "Is that what you think?" William shook his head. "I saw the way he looked at you, Harmony, not as a curiosity or a challenge, but as an equal. One conversation doesn't make him different, Pa. We'll see tomorrow at dinner," William said with an infuriating confidence. "I have a feeling about this one." Harmony ignored him, but as she readied for bed, she found herself thinking about Yates Eastwood's direct gaze and the way he spoke about horses with knowledge and respect, the same way she did. It was refreshing. Morning brought a flurry of ranch activities that kept Harmony too busy to dwell on the upcoming dinner. A fence needed mending in the north pasture, and 2 of their mares were showing signs of illness. By mid-afternoon, she was hot, tired, and covered in dust, her mind far from social obligations. "Don't forget dinner at 7, William reminded her as she trudged toward the house. Harmony groaned. "Can't you go alone? Tell him I'm tending to sick horses." "Which would be true if you stayed home," William acknowledged. "But I gave my word we'd both attend, just this once, Harmony." The pleading note in his voice softened her resolve. Her father asked so little of her, supporting her unconventional lifestyle when most men would have forced their daughters into marriage years ago. "Fine," she sighed, "but I won't pretend to be something I'm not." William smiled. "I would never ask you to. Just perhaps the blue dress instead of riding pants." 2 hours later, Harmony sat stiffly in the hotel dining room, uncomfortable in her mother's blue dress and pinned-up hair. The garment, though beautifully made, restricted her movements in ways her usual attire didn't. She felt like an imposter, Yates stood when they approached his table, his eyes widening briefly at the sight of Harmony transformed. He recovered quickly, pulling out her chair with practiced ease. "Miss Jackson, you look lovely," he said simply, without the exaggerated flattery most men would have employed. "Thank you," she replied, oddly grateful for his restraint. "Though I feel like a horse in a saddle 2 sizes too small." Yates laughed, a genuine sound that drew the attention of nearby diners. An apt comparison. I confess I feel similarly constrained by these town clothes. He did look different from the previous evening, dressed in a well-tailored suit rather than riding clothes. It suited him, though Harmony suspected he was more comfortable on horseback than in a dining room, just as she was. The meal progressed pleasantly enough, with conversation flowing between ranching, local politics, and childhood stories. Yates spoke of growing up in Kentucky, learning horsemanship from his father and grandfather. "My mother thought it improper for me to spend so much time in the stables," he explained. "She wanted me educated as a gentleman, perhaps to pursue law or banking." "What changed her mind?" William asked. Yates smiled ruefully. "Nothing did. She simply accepted that her son had more horse sense than social ambition. When my father died 5 years ago, there was no question I would take over the breeding operation." "And now you're in Texas," Harmony observed. "That's a significant change from Kentucky society." "I needed space to build something of my own," Yates explained. "My brother manages the family operation now. We divided the stock, and I brought my best breeding pairs west, including the Arabian you mentioned." Harmony couldn't hide her interest. Yates nodded, his expression brightening. "Pharaoh. He's extraordinary fastest horse I've ever owned, though from what I hear your shadow might give him competition." William chuckled. "There's not a horse in the county that can outrun Shadow with Harmony in the saddle." "Is that so?" Yates leaned forward, his blue eyes intent on Harmony. "I'd love to see that firsthand." "Are you challenging me, Mr. Eastwood?" Harmony asked, a hint of steel in her voice. "Not at all," he replied smoothly. "Merely expressing admiration and healthy curiosity, though if you were interested in a friendly race sometime, I wouldn't decline." William glanced between them, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Harmony doesn't usually race for sport. Too many men have tried to prove themselves against her over the years. "I can imagine," Yates said, his gaze still on Harmony. "It must be tiresome having your abilities constantly questioned." "You have no idea," she replied, surprised by his perception. "Then I withdraw the suggestion," Yates said easily. "Though the offer to ride together stands, no competition necessary." The remainder of dinner passed pleasantly, and Harmony found herself genuinely enjoying Yates's company. His knowledge of horses was extensive, his stories entertaining, and he repeatedly drew her into the conversation, valuing her opinions in a way few men did. As they prepared to leave, Yates mentioned his plans for the coming week. "I'm hosting a small gathering at my ranch next Saturday. Nothing formal, just a barbecue to meet my neighbors. I'd be honored if you both would attend." "We'd be delighted," William said before Harmony could formulate an excuse. Outside the hotel, as they waited for their horses to be brought around, Yates spoke quietly to Harmony. "I hope I didn't offend you with talk of racing earlier. That wasn't my intention." "You didn't," she admitted. "I'm just accustomed to men challenging me to prove themselves." "I have nothing to prove to you, Miss Jackson," Yates said, his voice sincere. "Though I admit I'd enjoy seeing your skills firsthand." Their horses arrived, and Harmony was struck by the quality of Yates's mount. The Arabian was indeed magnificent, tall, proud, with intelligent eyes and perfect conformation. "Beautiful animal," she said appreciatively. "Thank you." "He's still adjusting to Texas. Perhaps a ride with Shadow would settle him. Harmony found herself smiling. Perhaps. As they rode home under a canopy of stars, William ventured, "He's a fine man. He seems to be," Harmony admitted cautiously, "and quite taken with you." She rolled her eyes, though in the darkness her father couldn't see. "He's taken with my reputation as a rider, that's all." "Is that why he couldn't take his eyes off you all evening?" William asked innocently. "Pa, please don't start. One civil dinner doesn't mean anything." But as they continued home, Harmony couldn't help but replay moments from the evening, the way Yates listened when she spoke, how he defended her right to refuse races, his genuine interest in her opinions about breeding and training. It was different. The following days brought unexpected developments. Harmony encountered Yates in town twice, each time engaging in lengthy conversations about horses that left her both stimulated and confused. He treated her as an equal, a fellow enthusiast rather than a curiosity. On Thursday morning, Harmony was exercising Shadow near the creek that marked their eastern property line when she spotted a familiar figure on an Arabian stallion, riding along the opposite bank. Yates waved when he saw her, guiding his horse to a shallow crossing point. "Good morning, Miss Jackson. Beautiful day for a ride." "It is," she agreed, watching critically as he navigated the crossing. His seat was excellent, his hands gentle on the reins. "I was hoping to run into you," he admitted, drawing alongside her. "I wanted to invite you to see my stock before the gathering on Saturday. Your father mentioned you might have insights on my breeding program." Harmony was surprised. "Did he now?" "He speaks very highly of your judgment with horses," Yates said simply. "I'd value your opinion." The sincerity in his voice was difficult to doubt. "When did you have in mind?" "This afternoon, if you're free. I've just finished the basic renovations to the stables." Harmony hesitated only briefly. "I can come after I finish my chores, around 3. "Perfect," Yates smiled. "No need for formality. Come as you are." As he turned to leave, Harmony called after him. "Mr. Eastwood," he looked back, eyebrows raised. "Your posture is excellent, but you're gripping too tight with your knees. It's restricting Pharaoh's breathing when he runs." Rather than taking offense, Yates looked thoughtful, then deliberately adjusted his position. "Better," Harmony nodded, impressed by his willingness to accept criticism. "Much," he smiled. "That's why I need your eyes, Miss Jackson. See you at 3. As he rode away, Harmony found herself looking forward to the afternoon with unexpected enthusiasm. The Miller property, now Eastwood Ranch, had been neglected for years. But even from a distance, Harmony could see the improvements Yates had already made. The sagging fence was repaired, the yard cleared of debris, and the barn had a fresh coat of red paint. As she approached, she saw Yates working with a young colt in the corral, his movements patient and deliberate. He was dressed in simple work clothes, his sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned, muscular forearms. He looked more at home here than he had in the hotel dining room. He spotted her and waved, saying something to the young Mexican man who took the colt's lead rope while Yates vaulted over the fence. "Miss Jackson," he greeted her warmly. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Eastwood." She dismounted, eyeing the improvements. "You've been busy." "Barely scratched the surface," he admitted, "but the essentials are done. The horses needed proper shelter before I could worry about my own comforts." Harmony appreciated that priority. "How many did you bring from Kentucky?" 12. 8 mares, 3 stallions, and Pharaoh. Pride infused his voice at the mention of his prized Arabian. "Plus I've purchased 4 local horses to diversify the bloodlines." He showed her around the property, introducing her to his ranch hands, 2 Mexican brothers and their teenage nephew, before leading her to the newly renovated stables. The horses were indeed exceptional. Harmony moved from stall to stall, assessing conformation, temperament, and potential with a practiced eye. Yates watched her quietly, occasionally offering background on a particular animal's lineage or training. "What do you think?" he asked when she'd seen them all. "Impressive stock," she said honestly. "Better than anything else in the county. You've got excellent foundation for a breeding program. High praise coming from you," he smiled. "I've heard the Jackson horses are the finest in West Texas. We've worked hard to make them so." Harmony turned to the last stall, where the magnificent Arabian stood watching them. "But we don't have anything like him." Pharaoh was even more impressive up close, 16 hands of perfectly proportioned Arabian bloodlines, with an intelligent eye and proud carriage. "He's my pride and joy," Yates admitted. "Cost me nearly everything I had after my father died, but worth every penny." Harmony approached the stall and the stallion extended his neck, nostrils flaring as he assessed her. She held out her hand, letting him catch her scent. "He's cautious with strangers," Yates said, "especially women. My mother was afraid of horses, and I think he senses that uncertainty in most women who approach him." But Pharaoh was nuzzling Harmony's hand now, his initial wariness replaced with curious interest. She stroked his face gently, speaking in low tones that Yates couldn't quite hear. "Remarkable," he murmured. "He's never taken to someone so quickly." Harmony smiled, still focused on the horse. "He's just never met a woman who understands him before." "I believe you're right." Yates watched them with undisguised admiration. "Would you like to see him run?" They moved to the large paddock behind the stables, where Yates saddled Pharaoh himself, explaining his training regimen as he worked. "He needs a strong hand but a gentle voice," he said, tightening the girth. "Too much pressure and he rebels. Too little and he takes advantage." "Like most men," Harmony commented dryly. Yates laughed. "Fair observation." He mounted with fluid grace and guided Pharaoh around the perimeter of the paddock before opening him up to a full gallop. Horse and rider moved as one, thundering across the open space with breathtaking speed and precision. Harmony leaned against the fence, genuinely impressed. Pharaoh's stride was nearly perfect, his speed remarkable. And Yates rode well, very well, having corrected his knee position as she'd suggested. When they circled back, both horse and rider were breathing hard but exhilarated. "What do you think?" Yates asked, patting Pharaoh's sweating neck. "He's magnificent," Harmony said truthfully. "Almost as fast as Shadow." Yates raised an eyebrow. "Almost, almost," she repeated with confidence. He dismounted, leading Pharaoh toward her. "Now I am curious. Not challenging, just curious." Harmony studied him, trying to detect any trace of the masculine pride that usually accompanied such statements. Finding none, she made a decision. Tomorrow morning. Sunrise. The flats stretch along Alamito Creek, starting at the Big Cottonwood and ending at the Red Rocks. 3 miles, open terrain. Yates looked surprised but pleased. "You're suggesting a race." "I'm suggesting a demonstration," she corrected. "No stakes, no wagers. Just 2 fine horses showing what they can do." "I'd be honored," Yates said, his eyes bright with anticipation. "Though I should warn you, Pharaoh has never been beaten in a fair race." "Neither has Shadow," Harmony replied with a smile. "Tomorrow we'll see which streak ends." That evening, as she brushed Shadow meticulously in the stable, William found her humming something she rarely did. "You enjoyed your visit to Eastwood Ranch, I take it?" he asked casually. "His horses are exceptional," Harmony admitted, "particularly the Arabian." "Just the horses?" William pressed, hiding a smile. Harmony rolled her eyes. "The man knows his stock, I'll grant him that. High praise indeed coming from you." William leaned against the stall door. "You know, he asked about you when we first met." Not just your riding, he wanted to know about your mother, your upbringing, your interests beyond horses. Harmony's hand stilled on the brush. Why? I believe he was trying to understand you, William said softly. Not as a curiosity, but as a person worth knowing. She resumed brushing, unsure how to respond. After a moment, she said, "We're racing tomorrow morning, just to compare the horses." William raised his eyebrows but kept his tone neutral. "Is that so? You haven't accepted a race challenge in over a year, not since that cattle buyer from San Antonio tried to prove his quarter horse could outrun Shadow." "This is different," Harmony insisted. "It's not a challenge, just a demonstration." "I see," William said, though his expression suggested he saw more than Harmony might wish. "Well, Pharaoh is certainly a magnificent animal. It should be interesting." "It's just a race, Pa," Harmony said, as much to herself as to him. "Don't read more into it." William merely smiled. "Of course, daughter. Just a race." Dawn broke clear and cool over the Texas landscape as Harmony guided Shadow toward the designated starting point. The rising sun painted the distant mountains gold and pink, promising another scorching day once it climbed higher. Yates was already waiting at the cottonwood tree, Pharaoh standing alertly beside him. Man and horse made a striking silhouette against the brightening sky. "Good morning," he called as she approached. "Perfect conditions." "Indeed." Harmony patted Shadow's neck. He was eager, sensing the excitement in the air. "Shall we set the terms? 3 miles, as you suggested. No obstacles, no interference, pure speed." Yates mounted Pharaoh with fluid grace. "Though if I may suggest to ensure fairness, perhaps we could have a neutral party start us." Harmony nodded toward the approaching rider, her father. "Already arranged." William rode up, smiling at them both. "Good morning, Mr. Eastwood. I see my daughter has you up with the birds." "I wouldn't have missed this for anything, sir," Yates replied, adjusting his hat. "It's an honor to race against such a legendary pair." Harmony positioned Shadow beside Pharaoh, noting how the two stallions eyed each other with wary respect. Both were magnificent animals in their prime, well matched in height and condition. The real difference would be in their hearts and their riders. "The rules are simple," William announced. "First to reach the red rock formation wins. No interference, no cutting across. Pure speed and endurance." He looked between them. "Are you ready?" Both nodded, tension vibrating between them like a plucked string. William raised his hand. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1. Go!" The world exploded into motion and sound. Both horses leaped forward as if shot from a cannon, hooves thundering against the packed earth. For the first 100 yards, they ran neck and neck, neither gaining advantage. Harmony leaned low over Shadow's neck, feeling his powerful muscles working beneath her. She kept her hands light on the reins, trusting him to find his own best pace. Beside her, Pharaoh stretched out in a magnificent stride, his Arabian bloodlines evident in his effortless gait. Gradually, Yates and Pharaoh began to edge ahead. The Arabian's legendary speed was no myth. He accelerated with graceful power, pulling a length ahead by the quarter-mile mark. Harmony remained calm. Shadow was built for endurance as well as speed. They had their strategy, practiced countless times against other challengers. She let Pharaoh lead, maintaining a steady pace just behind him. The landscape blurred around them, scrubby mesquite trees, patches of cactus, the occasional startled jackrabbit fleeing their approach. The only sounds were pounding hooves, rushing wind, and her own heartbeat hammering in her ears. At the halfway point, Pharaoh still led by nearly 2 lengths. Harmony could see Yates's straight back, his perfect form as he guided his stallion with minimal movement. He was an exceptional rider, perhaps the best she'd ever competed against. But now it was time. She leaned forward, whispering in Shadow's ear. Now, boy, show them what you can do. Shadow responded immediately, finding another gear that even Harmony sometimes forgot he possessed. His stride lengthened, his pace quickened, eating up the ground between them and Pharaoh with astonishing speed. Yates glanced back, surprise evident in his expression as Shadow drew alongside Pharaoh. For a breathless quarter mile, they ran side by side, neither yielding an inch. The red rocks loomed in the distance, perhaps half a mile away now. Harmony could feel Shadow beginning to tire, but she could also see Pharaoh's stride shortening slightly. Both horses were giving everything they had. This would be decided by heart, not just speed. "Come on, Shadow," she urged, her voice barely audible over the thundering hooves. Just a little more. With a surge that seemed to come from his very soul, Shadow pushed forward, gaining a head, then a neck, then a full length on Pharaoh. Harmony could hear Yates urging his stallion on behind her, but Shadow had found his final reserve of strength. They crossed the invisible finish line at the red rocks 2 lengths ahead of Pharaoh, Shadow's black coat gleaming with sweat, his nostrils flared wide as he gulped air. Harmony slowed him gradually, turning in a wide circle to cool him down properly. Her heart pounded with exhilaration and pride. Shadow had never run better. Yates and Pharaoh completed the race seconds later, the Arabian's sides heaving with exertion. Yates's face, rather than showing disappointment, was alight with admiration. "Magnificent," he called as he brought Pharaoh alongside Shadow at a walk. "Absolutely magnificent. I've never seen a horse finish like that. You were right, he's extraordinary." "So is Pharaoh," Harmony said generously. "No horse has pushed Shadow that hard in years." They walked their horses side by side, allowing them to cool down properly before returning to the starting point where William waited. "That was a race for the history books," William declared when they reached him. "I've never seen 2 finer horses run neck and neck like that." "Your daughter and Shadow were the better pair today," Yates said without hesitation. "It was an honor just to keep pace with them for as long as we did." His graciousness in defeat impressed Harmony almost as much as his riding had. Most men made excuses when beaten by a woman claiming their horse was off, the conditions unfavorable, or suggesting she'd somehow cheated. "You ride better than any man I've ever raced," she said impulsively. Yates looked genuinely touched by the compliment. "High praise indeed coming from you." William watched their exchange with interest. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation over breakfast. Mrs. Alvarez will have coffee and eggs waiting, and these horses deserve a good rest and extra grain after that performance." "I'd be delighted," Yates replied, his eyes still on Harmony. "If Miss Jackson doesn't mind the company." "Not at all," she said, surprised to realize she meant it. The ride back to Jackson Ranch was companionable, with Yates asking thoughtful questions about Shadow's training and breeding. His genuine interest in her methods, without any hint of condescension, continued to surprise and please Harmony. Breakfast stretched into mid-morning as they discussed horses, ranching, and their shared love of the open country. William eventually excused himself to tend to ranch business, leaving them alone on the porch with fresh coffee. "I should thank you," Yates said after a comfortable silence. "For what?" "For racing me," he replied. "I know now it wasn't something you do lightly or often." "I'm honored you made an exception." Harmony studied him over her coffee cup. "You're different from most men who have challenged me." "How so?" "You actually cared about the horses, not just winning." She set her cup down. "And you accepted defeat graciously." Yates smiled. "It wasn't difficult. The better pair won fairly. Besides," he added with a twinkle in his eye, "there's no shame in losing to the finest horsewoman in Texas. Flattery, Mr. Eastwood. Simple truth, Miss Jackson." His expression grew more serious. "May I speak plainly?" Harmony nodded, curious. "I came to Texas for a fresh start, yes. But also because I'd heard stories of a remarkable woman who could outride any man and who knew horses like she could read their minds." He held her gaze steadily. "Those stories reached all the way to Kentucky, and they intrigued me enough that I made a point of investigating when business brought me to El Paso." "You came here because of me?" Harmony was stunned. "I came to see if the stories were true," Yates clarified. "I stayed because they didn't do you justice." Heat rose to Harmony's cheeks. No man had ever pursued her for her skills rather than in spite of them. "What exactly are you saying, Mr. Eastwood?" "I'm saying I admire you, Miss Jackson. Your horsemanship, your determination, your spirit. I'd like the chance to know you better." He paused, then added, "With your father's permission, of course." "I make my own decisions," Harmony said automatically. Yates nodded. "I would expect nothing less. I only meant I would approach this properly with respect for both you and your father." Harmony wasn't sure how to respond. Part of her, the fiercely independent part, wanted to reject any hint of romantic interest outright. She'd spent years building her life and reputation without a man. Yet another part, one she rarely acknowledged, was drawn to Yates in a way she'd never experienced before. "I don't know what to say," she admitted finally. "You don't need to say anything now," Yates assured her. "Just, perhaps you'd be my particular guest at tomorrow's gathering. Allow me to continue proving I'm worth your consideration." His humility, combined with quiet confidence, was disarming. Harmony found herself nodding. "I'll come, but I make no promises beyond that." "That's all I ask," Yates said, his smile warming his entire face. "For now." The Eastwood Ranch gathering drew nearly every ranching family within 20 miles, all curious about the newcomer from Kentucky, with his fine horses and ambitious plans. Tables had been set up under sprawling oak trees, laden with food prepared by women from neighboring ranches who were eager to welcome and evaluate the eligible bachelor. Harmony arrived with her father, immediately noting the appreciative glances Yates drew from every unmarried woman present. He was handsome, wealthy, and charming, a prime catch in a county where eligible men were scarce. A flash of something that felt uncomfortably like jealousy surprised her when she saw him laughing with the Cooper sisters, both renowned beauties. She dismissed it immediately. She had no claim on Yates Eastwood, nor did she want one, did she? Yates spotted them and excused himself, making his way through the crowd with purpose. "Mr. Jackson, Miss Jackson," he greeted them warmly. "I'm so pleased you could come." "Wouldn't have missed it," William said, shaking his hand. "Quite a turnout you've got." "More than I expected," Yates admitted, his eyes finding Harmony's, "though the guest I most hoped would attend has just arrived." Harmony felt that unfamiliar heat in her cheeks again. "Your ranch looks transformed already, Mr. Eastwood. You've accomplished much in a short time." "Thank you. Would you like a tour? There are several improvements since your visit that I'd value your opinion on." William smiled knowingly. "You young folks go ahead. I see Judge Parker over there, been meaning to speak with him about water rights." As her father moved away, Yates offered his arm. After a moment's hesitation, Harmony placed her hand lightly upon it, aware of the curious glances this gesture attracted from the other guests. Yates led her away from the main gathering toward the newly constructed training yard. "I've implemented some of your suggestions about stall design," he explained. "The results have been impressive." For the next hour, they walked the property, discussing horses and ranch improvements with the easy communication of like-minded individuals. Harmony found herself suggesting ideas freely, impressed when Yates considered each thoughtfully rather than dismissing them as many men would have. "You have remarkable insight," he said as they paused by the creek that ran along the eastern edge of his property. "You see solutions I would have missed. Years of practical experience," Harmony shrugged. "When you grow up working horses every day, you learn what works and what doesn't." "It's more than that," Yates insisted. "You have an instinct for them, a natural understanding most people never achieve." His sincere admiration was more flattering than any conventional compliment about her appearance could have been. Harmony found herself smiling more freely than she had in years. "Mr. Eastwood, please call me Yates," he interrupted, "at least when we're speaking privately." "Yates," she amended, the name feeling intimate on her tongue. "I'm curious about something. You mentioned coming to Texas partly because of stories about me. What exactly did you hear?" He considered her question thoughtfully. "The first mention was from a horse trader in Louisville who'd been through West Texas. He spoke of a woman who rode like the wind and could gentle the wildest stallion with just her voice. I thought he was exaggerating, of course." "Of course," Harmony smiled. Then a cavalry officer at a horse auction mentioned the same woman, how she'd outrun a band of horse thieves and recovered stolen army mounts single-handedly. By the third story, from a Texas cattle buyer, I was genuinely intrigued. And now, having met the legend in person. Harmony meant it teasingly, but his expression turned serious. "Now I find the reality far more compelling than the legend," Yates said softly. "The stories mentioned your skill but not your intelligence. They praised your courage but not your kindness to animals. They noted your beauty but not the spirit that truly animates it." Harmony felt breathless suddenly, as if she'd been running alongside shadow rather than standing still. No man had ever spoken to her this way, seeing her so completely. "You barely know me," she managed. "I'd like to change that," he replied simply. "If you'll allow it." Before she could respond, a shout from the direction of the gathering interrupted them. One of the ranch hands was running toward them, waving urgently. "Mr. Eastwood, come quick. There's trouble." They hurried back to find a commotion near the corral. A group of men Harmony didn't recognize were arguing loudly with some of the local ranchers. Their horses, dusty from hard riding, suggested they'd come some distance. "What's happening?" Yates asked the nearest bystander. "Those men claim one of your horses was stolen from them in El Paso," replied Mr. Cooper, a neighboring rancher. "Say they tracked it here." Yates frowned. "That's ridiculous. Every horse on this property was legally purchased or bred by my family." The leader of the strangers, a hard-faced man with a prominent scar across his chin, stepped forward. "That bay stallion in your corral carries my brand. Stolen from me 2 months ago by a slick-talking Easterner." Harmony recognized the horse in question, a handsome bay that Yates had introduced as one of his newer breeding stallions. Yates remained calm. "Sir, I purchased that horse legally from a reputable dealer in Fort Worth. I have a bill of sale to prove it. Papers can be forged," the man sneered. "That's my horse, and I'm taking him back." The tension in the crowd increased, with some men moving to stand beside Yates while others hung back, uncertain. Harmony noticed several of the strangers had positioned themselves strategically around the gathering, hands near their weapons. William appeared at Harmony's side, his expression grim. "Trouble," he murmured. "You know them," she whispered. William shook his head. "Never seen them before. But that leader has the look of a man who's killed before and wouldn't mind doing it again." Yates maintained his composure. "I understand your concern, sir. If you believe this horse was stolen from you, let's resolve this properly. I suggest we ride into Marfa tomorrow and let Sheriff Davis examine your claim and my documentation." The scarred man spat on the ground. "I don't need no sheriff to tell me my own horse. We're taking him now." "That would be theft," Yates said evenly, though Harmony could see the tension in his shoulders. I cannot allow that. Several of the local ranchers moved closer to Yates, hands resting on their sidearms. The gathering had turned potentially deadly in minutes. "Wait," Harmony said suddenly, stepping forward. All eyes turned to her. "May I examine the horse in question?" The scarred man looked at her with disdain. "What business is this of yours, woman?" "Miss Jackson is the most knowledgeable horse expert in the county," Yates said before she could respond. "If there's a question about this animal's identity, her assessment would be valuable." After a tense moment, the man nodded grudgingly. "Look all you want. Won't change the fact that's my horse." Harmony approached the bay stallion cautiously. The animal was agitated by the tension around him, eyes rolling nervously. She spoke softly, calming him with her voice before running her hands over his coat, checking his legs, examining his teeth. The scarred man grew impatient. "Get on with it, woman." "A proper examination takes time," she replied calmly, continuing her assessment. Finally, she stepped back. "This horse bears your brand, sir, as you stated," she said, addressing the scarred man. "However, it has been altered from its original form." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "What are you saying?" the man demanded. "I'm saying this horse originally bore the Diamond K brand of the Keller Ranch near El Paso. Someone changed it to resemble yours." She pointed to a subtle irregularity in the brand that most would have missed. "The scar tissue has different healing patterns. This alteration was done approximately 3 months ago." The scarred man's hand moved toward his gun. "You calling me a liar, woman?" "I'm stating facts about this horse," Harmony replied evenly. "This animal has never belonged to you. I suspect your real purpose here has nothing to do with recovering stolen property." The atmosphere shifted instantly. The strangers exchanged glances, hands tensing near weapons. "I believe," William said loudly, "that you gentlemen should leave. Now." The standoff stretched for several tense seconds before the scarred man sneered. "Keep the damn horse. Ain't worth dying over." He signaled to his men and they backed toward their mounts, faces dark with thwarted purpose. "This ain't over, Eastwood," the leader called as they mounted. "You made enemies today." They rode off in a cloud of dust, leaving the gathered ranchers muttering among themselves. "Well handled, Miss Jackson," Judge Parker said, approaching with admiration. "Where did you learn to detect altered brands like that?" "My father taught me," Harmony replied. "We've recovered stolen horses before." Yates turned to her, his expression a mixture of gratitude and admiration. "You likely prevented bloodshed today. Thank you." "Those men weren't here about a horse," William said quietly. "That was Jake Reeves and his gang. They've been operating around El Paso for years, rustling, robbery, worse. If they've come this far east—" They were sizing up the ranch, Harmony realized. Looking for weaknesses, counting men. Yates nodded grimly. "I've heard of Reeves. Didn't recognize him with that scar, though." "We should alert Sheriff Davis," Judge Parker suggested. "Get extra men patrolling the area." As the gathering dispersed, the festive mood dampened by the confrontation, Yates drew Harmony aside. "I meant what I said. You prevented what could have been a massacre today." His eyes held hers intently. "Your courage is remarkable." "Anyone would have done the same," she demurred. "No," Yates shook his head. "Most would have stayed silent, let the men handle it." "You stepped forward when it mattered most." William approached before she could respond. "We should head back to the ranch, Harmony. Might be wise to keep extra guards on the horses tonight." "Of course." She turned to Yates. "You should do the same." "Reeves doesn't strike me as a man who gives up easily." "I'll be vigilant," he promised. Then, more softly, "Will I see you again soon?" Despite the tension of the day, or perhaps because of it, Harmony found herself unwilling to maintain her usual careful distance. "I'll ride over tomorrow." To check on the horses. The smile that transformed his face was worth the momentary vulnerability she felt in making the offer. "I'll look forward to it." The following weeks established a pattern that surprised everyone in Presidio County, especially Harmony herself. Nearly every day found her riding to Eastwood Ranch or Yates coming to Jackson Land. They worked with horses together, shared meals, and engaged in long conversations that ranged from practical ranching matters to philosophical discussions about the changing West. William observed this developing relationship with quiet satisfaction, saying little but noticing everything. The other ranching families were less restrained, gossip spreading through the county about the Kentucky horseman and the woman who rode better than any man in Texas. Harmony found herself caring less about the gossip than she would have expected. Yates treated her as an equal partner in their shared passion for horses, valuing her opinion and incorporating her suggestions into his breeding program. For the first time in her life, she had met someone who understood and respected her skills without qualification. One evening in late August, they were walking along the creek after a day spent training a particularly challenging young mare. The setting sun painted the landscape in gold and crimson, cicadas providing a rhythmic backdrop to their conversation. "I've been thinking about our breeding programs," Yates said, his tone casual though Harmony sensed an undercurrent of something more significant. "There would be considerable advantages to combining our stock." Harmony glanced at him sideways. "Are you proposing a business arrangement, Mr. Eastwood?" A smile played at the corners of his mouth. "In a manner of speaking." Though I had hoped for something more comprehensive than merely sharing bloodlines. Her heart quickened, but she maintained her composure. "Such as?" Yates stopped walking, turning to face her directly. "Harmony, these past weeks have been the happiest of my life. I've never met anyone who understands horses, understands me the way you do." "Yates," he held up a hand. "Please let me finish. I know you value your independence. I know you've built a life and reputation that doesn't depend on any man. I admire that about you deeply." Harmony remained silent, her pulse racing. "I'm not asking you to give up who you are or what you've built," Yates continued earnestly. "I'm asking if we might build something together, something greater than either of us could create alone. Are you proposing marriage?" Harmony asked directly, needing absolute clarity. "I am," Yates confirmed, reaching for her hands. "But not in the traditional sense where you would become merely Mrs. Eastwood. I'm proposing a partnership in every sense: the ranch, the horses, our lives." Harmony felt dizzy with conflicting emotions. She had never imagined marriage for herself, had actively avoided it for years. Yet standing before this man who looked at her with such genuine respect and affection, she found her carefully constructed defenses weakening. "I don't know what to say," she admitted, echoing her words from weeks earlier. "You don't need to answer now," Yates assured her. "Take whatever time you need, but know that my feelings won't change." He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small box. "This was my grandmother's. I had it sent from Kentucky." Opening it revealed a simple but elegant ring with a single diamond, not ostentatious but of obvious quality and meaning. "It's beautiful," Harmony said softly. "Like its intended wearer," Yates replied, "though far less remarkable." She smiled despite herself. "You're becoming poetic, Mr. Eastwood. You inspire poetry, Miss Jackson." He returned the ring to his pocket without pressing her to take it. "Consider my proposal, that's all I ask for now." "I will," she promised, touched by his patience and understanding. As they walked back toward the ranch houses, a distant rider approached at speed. Even from a distance, Harmony recognized their ranch hand, Miguel. "Señorita Jackson," he called as he drew closer. "Come quickly. Your father, he is hurt." Cold fear gripped Harmony's heart. "What happened?" Raiders the Reeves gang, Miguel explained breathlessly. They tried to steal horses. Your father confronted them. He was shot. Without another word, Harmony ran for Shadow, mounted bareback, and urged him into a gallop toward home, leaving Yates to follow. She found William in his bedroom, the local doctor already in attendance. Her father's face was ashen, a bloodied bandage covering his left shoulder. "Pa," she cried, rushing to his side. William managed a weak smile. "Not as bad as it looks, daughter. Bullet went clean through, doctor." Harris looked less optimistic. "He's lost a lot of blood, Miss Jackson, and at his age, infection is a serious concern." "I'll be fine," William insisted, wincing as he tried to sit up straighter. "More concerned about the horses. Did Miguel tell you?" "He said Reeves and his gang tried to steal them," Harmony confirmed, her voice tight with controlled rage. "They got 3 of our best mares," William said bitterly. "Would have taken more if the boys hadn't fought them off." Yates arrived moments later, his face grave as he assessed the situation. "Mr. Jackson, I'm so sorry this happened." William shook his head weakly. "Not your fault, son. Reeves has been a menace in these parts for years. Just never came after us before." "They're growing bolder," the doctor observed, packing his medical bag. "Sheriff Davis needs to organize a proper posse, hunt them down once and for all." "The sheriff is in El Paso until next week," Miguel said from the doorway. "Deputy knows, but he says he cannot leave town unprotected to chase bandits." Harmony's expression hardened. "Then we'll have to recover our horses ourselves." "Absolutely not," William protested, trying again to sit up. "Reeves has at least 10 men riding with him. It's too dangerous." "We can't just let them take our horses, Pa. Those mares represent years of careful breeding." "Horses can be replaced," William said firmly. "You cannot." Yates, who had been silent, spoke up. "What if we organized our own posse? Between my men and yours, plus neighbors who would help, we could field enough riders to make Reeves think twice." "It would take days to organize," Harmony pointed out. "By then, they could be halfway to Mexico." "Perhaps not," Yates said thoughtfully. "Miguel, did you see which direction they headed?" "South, toward the Davis Mountains," the ranch hand replied. "They left clear tracks, did not seem worried about being followed." "That's because they don't expect pursuit until the sheriff returns," Harmony realized. "They'll be moving slowly, not pushing the horses they stole." Yates nodded. "If we left at first light with just a few good men, we could potentially catch them before they reach the mountains." William looked between them with concern. "It's too risky." "Reeves won't surrender those horses without a fight." "Which is why we won't give him the choice," Harmony said, a plan forming in her mind. "We'll take them back the same way he took them from us, by stealth." Despite William's continued objections, Harmony and Yates spent the night preparing for pursuit. They selected their 4 best men, 2 from each ranch, and gathered supplies for several days' tracking. "You should stay with your father," Yates suggested as they checked weapons and ammunition in the pre-dawn darkness. Harmony gave him a level look. "Would you stay behind if they were your horses?" "No," he admitted, "but I'm not the only child of a wounded man. Pa has Mrs. Alvarez and the remaining hands to care for him," Harmony said firmly. "Besides, I know those mares better than anyone. I'll recognize their tracks, their habits." Yates recognized the determination in her voice and nodded. "Very well. But you stay close to me, and you follow my lead if we encounter trouble." She raised an eyebrow. "I believe I've demonstrated I can handle trouble, Mr. Eastwood." "Indeed you have, Miss Jackson," he conceded with a hint of a smile. "Perhaps it's I who should follow your lead." They set out as the first light of dawn touched the eastern horizon, following the clear trail left by Reeves and his men. The tracks led south, as Miguel had reported, toward the rugged terrain of the Davis Mountains where outlaws often found refuge in hidden canyons and caves. The day grew brutally hot as they rode, the August sun beating down mercilessly. Harmony set a brisk pace, knowing they needed to make up as much ground as possible before nightfall. By mid-afternoon, the signs indicated they were gaining on their quarry. Droppings from the stolen horses were fresher, and at one point they found the remains of a hastily abandoned campsite, embers still warm in the fire pit. "They're moving slower than I expected," Yates observed as they examined the tracks leaving the campsite. "Overconfident, perhaps." "Or setting a trap," suggested Miguel's brother Diego, who had come along as their best tracker. Harmony frowned. "The tracks are strange here. Some horses turned east while the main group continued south." Diego nodded, studying the ground carefully. "Three riders separated from the others, taking what appears to be 3 horses with them. The stolen mares," Harmony realized. "Reeves is dividing his forces to protect his prize." Yates considered this development. "It's a standard tactic. The main group serves as a distraction while the valuable cargo takes a different route." "Then we follow the mares," Harmony said decisively. They altered course, following the eastward tracks across increasingly rough terrain. As evening approached, Diego pointed to a distant smudge of smoke against the darkening sky. "They've made camp early," he said. "Probably in that small canyon ahead." They dismounted and approached on foot, using the growing shadows for cover. Cresting a small rise, they could see 3 men camped in a narrow canyon below. The stolen mares were tethered nearby, appearing unharmed though restless in the unfamiliar surroundings. "Just the 3 of them, as we thought," Yates whispered. "We outnumber them, but they have the advantage of position." Harmony studied the layout, noting how the horses were placed between the campfire and the canyon wall. "We need a distraction," she said. "Something to draw them away from the horses." "A stampede would work," suggested one of Yates's hands. "We could drive some cattle through their camp." "There are no cattle nearby," Diego pointed out. Harmony's eyes never left the mares. "We don't need cattle. We just need them to think danger is coming from one direction while we approach from another." Her plan was simple, but effective. 2 men would create a disturbance from the canyon's southern entrance, firing shots and making noise as if a larger force was attacking. Meanwhile, Harmony and Yates would slip in from the less accessible northern end to retrieve the horses. "It's risky," Yates cautioned, "if they don't all respond to the distraction." "They will," Harmony said confidently. "Men like that always choose to fight rather than guard." As darkness fell completely, they moved into position. Diego and one of Yates's men circled around to the southern entrance while Harmony and Yates, with the remaining 2 hands, made their way carefully down the rocky northern slope. The signal came at precisely the right moment, 3 rapid gunshots followed by shouting. As predicted, all 3 rustlers grabbed their weapons and moved toward the commotion, leaving the horses unguarded. Harmony and Yates rushed forward, quickly untethering the mares. The animals recognized Harmony immediately, nickering softly as she spoke reassuringly to them. They were leading the horses up the slope when a shout rang out behind them. One of the rustlers had circled back, spotting their escape. "Ride," Yates commanded, helping Harmony mount one of the mares bareback while he and the ranch hands scrambled onto the others. Gunshots echoed through the canyon as they urged the horses upward. One of Yates's men cried out, clutching his arm, but managed to stay mounted. They crested the ridge and galloped into the darkness, guided only by starlight and their horses' sure-footed instinct. Behind them, they could hear the rustlers mounting pursuit, but with the head start and Harmony's knowledge of the mare's capabilities, they quickly outdistanced their pursuers. They rode hard for an hour before pausing in a sheltered arroyo to check on the wounded ranch hand. The bullet had grazed his upper arm, painful but not serious. "We need to keep moving," Harmony said after bandaging the wound. "Reeves and his main group will join the pursuit once they realize what's happened." "Agreed," Yates said, "but we should change direction. They'll expect us to head straight back to the ranch." They rode north, then east, taking a circuitous route back toward Marfa. The night grew chill, a stark contrast to the day's heat, but they pushed on, stopping only when necessary to rest the horses. Dawn found them on a high ridge overlooking familiar territory, still a good 20 miles from home but within safer boundaries. No signs of pursuit had been detected for hours. "We did it," Harmony said, her exhausted face breaking into a triumphant smile as she stroked the neck of the mare she rode. "We got them back." Yates looked at her with undisguised admiration. "Your plan was perfect. You were right about everything, how they would separate the horses, how they would respond to the distraction." "I understand thieves," she shrugged. "They're predictable in their greed." They made it back to Jackson Ranch by mid-afternoon, tired but victorious. William, looking somewhat stronger than when they'd left, came onto the porch with Mrs. Alvarez's assistance. "Thank God," he said when he saw them ride in. "I've been sick with worry." Harmony dismounted and embraced her father gently, mindful of his wound. "The mares are safe, Pa. Not a scratch on them." William examined the recovered horses with a rancher's critical eye before looking at his daughter and Yates with newfound respect. "You two make quite a team." "Yes," Yates agreed, his gaze meeting Harmony's. "We do." That evening, after the excitement had settled, and the ranch hands had shared the story with increasingly dramatic embellishments, Harmony and Yates sat alone on the porch. The night was clear, stars brilliantly visible against the vast Texas sky. "I've been thinking about your proposal," Harmony said after a comfortable silence. Yates turned to her, his expression carefully neutral. "And when I was riding back with those mares today, I realized something important." She met his gaze directly. "I've spent my life proving I don't need a man to succeed, and that's still true." Yates nodded, waiting for her to continue. "But today showed me that while I don't need a partner, I might want one, the right one." She took a deep breath. "Someone who respects my abilities rather than feeling threatened by them. Someone who sees me as an equal." Hope brightened Yates's features. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying yes," Harmony confirmed. "Not because I need your protection or your name, but because I believe we could build something remarkable together." The joy that transformed Yates's face was worth any uncertainty she might have felt. He reached for her hands, holding them gently. "You've made me the happiest man in Texas," he said softly. "I promise you won't regret this decision." "I have conditions," Harmony warned, though her smile softened her words. "Name them." "The ranches will merge, but I remain an equal partner in all decisions. I continue training horses my way, and I never, ever become the kind of wife who sits at home while her husband handles business." Yates laughed. "I would expect nothing less. In fact, I would be deeply disappointed if you suddenly transformed into a conventional wife." "And one more thing," Harmony added, her expression turning serious. "I want to formalize my father's position. The ranch will be legally protected as his home for life, with a proper stake in the business." "Of course," Yates agreed immediately. "Your father's knowledge is invaluable, and his place in your life and our lives will always be honored." Satisfied, Harmony finally allowed herself to fully embrace the decision. "Then yes, Yates Eastwood, I will marry you." He produced the ring again, and this time she let him slide it onto her finger. It felt strange but not unwelcome, a symbol not of possession but of partnership. Their wedding 2 months later became the social event of the season in Presidio County. Held on the newly christened Eastwood Jackson Ranch, it combined traditional elements with touches that reflected their unconventional relationship. Harmony wore a beautiful dress, but insisted on riding to the ceremony on Shadow, with Yates meeting her halfway on Faro. Judge Parker, who performed the ceremony, later declared it the most fitting wedding he'd ever witnessed. Two exceptional people, equally matched in spirit and determination. William, recovered from his wound and beaming with pride, gave his daughter away with tears in his eyes. "Your mother would have been so proud," he whispered as he placed her hand in Yates's. The Reeves gang made one final attempt to strike back, setting fire to an outlying barn a week after the wedding. But the combined vigilance of the enlarged ranch staff thwarted more serious damage, and within a month, word came that Sheriff Davis had finally tracked Reeves to the border and ended his reign of terror in a fierce gunfight. As their first anniversary approached, Harmony and Yates had transformed their combined properties into the most successful horse breeding operation in West Texas. Their reputation spread throughout the state and beyond, with buyers coming from as far as Chicago and San Francisco to purchase their carefully bred stock. One autumn evening, they sat on their porch watching the sunset, much as they had the night Harmony accepted Yates's proposal. Shadow and Faro grazed contentedly in the nearby pasture, now accompanied by their first joint breeding project, a magnificent black filly with Faro's speed and Shadow's endurance. "I have news," Harmony said, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Yates raised an eyebrow. "Good news, I hope, the best kind," she confirmed, taking his hand and placing it gently on her still flat stomach. "We're going to have a foal of our own by spring." The joy that spread across Yates's face was matched only by the tenderness with which he embraced her. "A boy or girl with your spirit and determination. The world better prepare itself. And your patience and insight," Harmony added. "This child will grow up knowing horses like we do from birth. And riding before walking, no doubt," Yates chuckled, "just like his or her mother." As darkness fell over the Texas landscape they both loved, Harmony reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had spent years believing that maintaining her independence meant standing alone. Now she understood that the right partnership could strengthen rather than diminish the person she had always been. "No regrets?" Yates asked softly, seeming to read her thoughts. "None," she replied truthfully. "Though I still maintain I could outride you if challenged." Yates laughed, pulling her closer. "I would expect nothing less, Mrs. Eastwood Jackson. After all, you ride better than any man in the county, including your husband. Don't you forget it," she murmured, leaning into his embrace as the first stars appeared in the Texas sky. Spring brought new life to the Eastwood Jackson Ranch in the form of a healthy baby boy they named William Yates Eastwood, in honor of both his grandfather and father. With Harmony's characteristic determination, she was back in the saddle within weeks, often with her son secured safely against her in a special carrier Yates had designed. By the time little William, called Liam by everyone, was 5 years old, he was already showing signs of inheriting both his parents' natural affinity for horses. Harmony would watch with pride as Yates patiently taught their son the same lessons her father had taught her: respect for the animals, understanding of their needs and behaviors, and the beginning skills of horsemanship. "He has your eye," Harmony observed one day as Liam correctly identified a slight lameness in a yearling colt that even some of the experienced hands had missed. "And your instinct," Yates replied proudly. "Did I tell you he's been sneaking out to the training pen at dawn?" Miguel caught him talking to that wild Mustang we brought in last week, the one no one can get near. Harmony smiled. Like mother, like son. Their family expanded again with the birth of a daughter, Rose Elizabeth, when Liam was 7. Where Liam was thoughtful and methodical like his father, Rose proved to be fearless and impulsive like her mother, climbing onto her first pony unassisted before she could properly walk. The Eastwood Jackson breeding program flourished beyond even their ambitious expectations. Their horses became legendary throughout the West for their intelligence, speed, and endurance. Cavalry officers, wealthy ranchers, and even European buyers sought their stock, often placing orders for foals not yet born. William Jackson lived to see both his grandchildren born, taking particular delight in teaching them the same stories and songs he had once shared with Harmony. When he passed peacefully in his sleep at 73, he did so secure in the knowledge that the legacy he had begun would continue through his daughter and the family she had created. On the 10th anniversary of their wedding, Harmony and Yates organized a special race, an invitational event featuring the finest horsemen and women from across the state. The purse was substantial, but the real prize was the recognition of being named champion rider of West Texas. To everyone's delight, Harmony herself entered the competition, riding Shadow's daughter, Eclipse. At 33, she was still in her prime as a rider, and the special connection she shared with her horses gave her an advantage no male competitor could match. The racecourse was challenging 15 miles of varied terrain that tested both speed and endurance. Yates, serving as organizer rather than competitor, watched with undisguised pride as his wife took an early lead and never relinquished it, crossing the finish line 2 lengths ahead of her nearest challenger. As he presented her with the winner's trophy, Yates couldn't resist a public reminder of their beginning. Once again, Mrs. Eastwood Jackson proves what I learned years ago: she rides better than any man in the county. The crowd cheered as Harmony, flushed with victory and happiness, leaned from her saddle to kiss her husband. "And don't you forget it," she whispered, echoing the words she'd spoken so many years before. That evening, as they celebrated with friends and family, Liam approached his mother with a serious expression. At 12, he was already showing the height and strong features that would one day make him the image of his father. "Mama," he said earnestly, "I want to race like you. Will you teach me?" Harmony exchanged a glance with Yates, who nodded encouragingly. "Of course I will," she told her son. "But racing isn't just about going fast. It's about understanding your horse, feeling what they need, becoming one with them." "Like you and Shadow," Liam said. "Or you and Eclipse today." "Exactly," Harmony smiled. "We'll start tomorrow." As the celebrations continued around them, Yates drew Harmony aside to a quiet corner of the porch, the same porch where he had proposed, where they had shared so many important moments. "Happy?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Completely," she confirmed, leaning against him as they looked out over their land, their horses, their legacy. "We built something remarkable, just like you said we would." "We're not finished building yet," Yates pointed out. "Liam and Rose will take this place further than we ever imagined." Harmony nodded, watching as their children laughed with friends, already displaying the confidence and character that would serve them well in the years to come. "They'll have the best of both of us." "And the freedom to find their own paths," Yates added, "just as we did." As the stars emerged in the vast Texas sky, Harmony reflected on the journey that had brought her here, from the defiant young woman determined to prove herself in a man's world to the confident leader of a thriving enterprise, beloved wife, and mother. She had never compromised who she was, never diminished her spirit to accommodate others' expectations. Instead, She had found the one man who valued her precisely because of that spirit, who saw her strength as an asset rather than a threat, who rode beside her as an equal partner. "What are you thinking?" Yates asked, noticing her contemplative expression. Harmony smiled, turning to face the man who had changed her life by accepting her exactly as she was. "I was thinking about races, the ones we win, the ones we lose, and the ones that change our lives. Like our race that morning by Alameda Creek." Yates smiled at the memory. "Exactly like that," Harmony confirmed. "The race I won, but somehow you won too." Yates laughed, pulling her close. "The best race of my life, even though I lost." "The only race you ever needed to lose," Harmony agreed, resting her head against his shoulder as they watched their children, their legacy, under the endless Texas sky.